Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and the day is finally here. We are going to take your questions, your comments with the Burmis Brigade that you guys sent in. Now, I'm hoping we're going to do this more and more via Rockfin. You need to tag them on Twitter and encourage them to add this as a feature and allow you guys to upload your own video messages so we can focus on some of the stories maybe I'm missing, maybe you would like to see get a broader reach, and you believe deserve a little bit more attention, as well as some people simply sending me positive messages. Okay? So, before we get there, I do want to remind everybody, if you are watching on YouTube for some reason and you are not subscribed, subscribe. I mean, we're constantly getting banned. And if you're a fan on YouTube and not on Rockfin, and it seems like that is the case, a lot of people, you're missing out on a ton of different material that is not available whatsoever on YouTube, including tonight. We will be interviewing the GOAT, James Corbett. Let's hit it right here. That's going to be 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. James Corbett is going to be coming on to talk about the post-truth world. And we're going to revisit some of the things that we talked about all the way back in March of 2020, just before this COVID-19 84 a nightmare. Okay? So, with all that being said, thumbs up, subscribe, share. The links are down below. Let's get it going. Let's go with this first comment right here. I believe this is Susie, and she talks about Invisible Empire a little bit.
Hi Jason, making this video about 7 a.m. Seattle time, and I just wanted to thank you for making Invisible Empire, which I just watched, and it made everything so much clearer for me. It gave me so much clarity. My question is, if patriotism was used against us 21 years ago, why are patriots being condemned now?
And we'll get to Sarah in a moment. Why now? That's a great question. Well, because you needed to set up the infrastructure, okay, and legitimize all of it. You were always the target, right? So here's the deal. You've been used up, right? All the time. Assets and a certain political group that you rally. You know, everybody talks about the brown shirts, you know, via the Nazi era. Eventually, you know, the guns having been turned on them. Well, when you had all these people frightened after 9/11, ready for the Patriot Act, right? Ready for endless authorizations of wars that aren't even called wars, and the legitimization of the Department of Homeland Security, which is already an extension of their spy program on Americans. Now, the definition of terrorist was really so broad initially. That's what sounded the alarm bells for people like Alex Jones with the Patriot Act, because it was really just a politically motivated individual that they wanted to deem a terrorist. Now, it took time to dominate the Middle East and grow this infrastructure under the guise of protecting us from what? Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and there were smaller programs out there obviously monitoring Americans, but it wasn't as vocalized, all right? And now that you have signature reduction, and you have all these fusion centers, and you have all these think tanks, and you have all these front organizations, they are ready to openly turn it on the American people. And that was part of the QAnon sense. You know, no matter how you believe this thing started, right? It was ultimately used in order to propagate things that were not only, you know, extremely false, but you had a hero worship, you had saviors at the bottom, and then you had the fantastical mixed with facts. You know, unfortunately, we have had high-level pedophiles in our government that have already been outed, like Dennis Hassert and Anthony Weiner, correct? But then it went well beyond that to people that at best were speculated, and that there was going to be a cabal bringing them down. Yes, many people who refer to themselves as elitists and their minions do partake in occult-style rituals at places like the Bohemian Grove. And as they come up in clubs like, what, Skull and Bones. You know? But when you make it about blood-drinking adrenochrome crazies, well, again, you get a certain sect of society looking, not even understanding where that may come from, or no matter what evidence there might be that real evil stuff is going on, right? They can't accept it. They won't even look at the information. And now you're legitimately associating all those people with Donald Trump, and you're saying the big lie is that the election is stolen. That terminology, the big lie, very World War II era, right? So you guys are now the terrorists. You are always the terrorists, but now we can mobilize against you, especially with the amount of authoritarian dictates and mandates that have been allowed to occur globally during this COVID-1984 nightmare. So I thank you for that question and that comment. And please, people, go watch Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. And it really takes you through over 100 years of the erection of so many of these things we see happening right now. All right, let's go to the next video. And again, guys, you want this feature? You want this feature? Let Rockfin know that you want to be able to video super chat. How cool is this? You're on the show. I love this aspect because it gives a voice to the Burmese Brigade. So Sarah has been a wonderful supporter of the program and actually come to a couple of the events here in the Quad Cities. She's out in South Dakota. I mean, it's not close by any means, but at the same time, it is only about 6.5 hours from where I am. So Sarah, take it away.
Hey, this is Sarah, your fellow spirit warrior in South Dakota. Like a bird of a feather, I'm flying towards peace and freedom. I actually have this above my bed to remind me and inspire me to keep dreaming. And the message I'd like to share is to say that I truly do believe that it's the dreams we hold in our heart that are not only a weapon, but they are protection against this nightmare of COVID-1984. So continue to dream on, and may all your dreams come true.
And by the way, I love that positive message. And one of the things that we always try to do here, despite the darkness that surrounds us, is remain upbeat, because there are good things happening in the world all the time. And I want to be a part of those good things. I hope you want to be a part of those good things. And ultimately, if we do want to make the world better and fight this predator class, now transhumanist nightmare, because the track trace database society is already here, baby. It ain't the Internet of Things anymore. They want it to be the Internet of you. All right? And the bottom line is, are you going to retain your humanity? Are you going to retain the ability to have free choice? To smile when you hug somebody you love or see somebody you haven't in a long time? To enjoy the day with your family outside, right? To be a part of labor that you can be proud of and then lift yourself up through the natural endorphins of accomplishments? Or will you hook into this metaverse, right? This virtual nightmare of transhumanism for quick endorphin hits that mean nothing? Further and further and further and further, pushing you away from your human destiny. Well, no matter how dark it gets, I'll tell you what, I'm going to try to remain as human as possible. All right, let's get to the next question and comment. And remember, guys, I want to do this. So you got to push Rockfin into this. Imagine being able to do this exclusively on that platform with all the creators there. Pretty cool stuff, I think. That's just me. Maybe you guys don't think it's so cool.
Hi, Jason. This is Mark Matheny, Sic Semper Tyrannis News. I have a question for you. Do you think that the recent Kazakhstan uprising was organic, just among the people, or do you believe there might have been some type of CIA or alphabet agency involved? That's my question.
So I had that same question for a very, very smart gentleman, Ryan Christian of The Last American Vagabond, a couple weeks ago. And I openly admitted to my ignorance on the subject, and I was not really sure. And I got to tell you, I'm still not sure of all the aspects of this. However, Ryan sent me a very, very insightful article. Okay, and it's on his website. There haven't been a lot of updates on Kazakhstan, and I have not watched Ryan's latest coverage over the last week or so to see if he's updated any of this, but I haven't seen the articles there, okay? Now, it's really, really interesting because not only does it not point blame in any direction, but it talks about the interests that are possibly afoot in Kazakhstan. It talks about their resources and their lithium production. It talks about alliances with Iran. It talks about the Belt Road Initiative. And at the same time, it also talks about uprisings that were clearly manufactured in places like Syria to legitimize United States and NATO interests. Okay? But what I really liked about this article, and I think that everybody should go give it a read, it's actually pretty short, probably take about 15, 20 minutes, is this last paragraph. Because, again, it talks about China and their investments, and again, wanting that railway. And it does talk about the fact that the United States may want to combat that type of stuff. It says, although it is not clear exactly what has happened in Kazakhstan in terms of documented evidence to support one narrative or the other, because in Russia, very much so, they're talking about interference from outside actors, and many of the pundits there apparently are speculating on United States involvement, but haven't provided really any evidence. It is clear that the repressive violence was used by the state, as has been done many times before. Whilst groups of armed rioters and insurrectionists committed their own atrocities, it is a positive thing that the situation now continues to de-escalate because of all the elements were for a Spain Civil War style uprising backed by the West, which never ends up serving the people's best interests. And, you know, he also talks about how the people have a right to be pissed. And, you know, that all you need is the right powder keg moment of an already abused people to, you know, try to institute your own form of government and authoritarianism. So, really good article there. I hope that answered your questions. Let's get to the next question.
Hi, Jason. This is Corbin over on the Rockfin channel, Rogue Splice. Me and Lindsay Pearson, two locals over in Lebanon, Oregon, have been covering this topic of our school district school-based health center proposal. We've been going over the topic of different things that would be on site and referred and all that. We have an article on it that we've done, and we are also doing plenty of videos on it. But if you have any suggestions for us on what we might be doing differently to make a more effective approach on this, please do tell. Thanks again, Burmis. You do a great job.
Well, first of all, and we'll get to Simon Naylor, which I'm really excited to hear his voice and see his face on the program as well. This is a tough one, right? Because even myself, I sit here and I think, what can I do more to reach more people? And oftentimes, I'll have the opportunity to go to a Dr. Katz presentation, who's a mouthpiece, you know, for the Faucians out there, if you will, and the World Health Organization. And what I do is not only do I go and challenge that person, but I tape it, and I tape others who try to restrict me from challenging that person, and I put it out there. I'll tell you what, that hasn't really gone viral. I can't put it on YouTube. It's very tough. And one of the reasons that I want to have interns in a building is not only just to have like a more regular broadcast, but then have them edit things up and put them all over social media. So first things first, obviously there are certain things now in that pamphlet that you have circled and you're talking about we can't talk about on YouTube, and we're, you know, streaming this on YouTube to try to bring people over to Rockfin where we can talk about those things, right? That's a big hurdle But at the same time, you know, cutting up something that's 30 seconds, 90 seconds, that can help, and putting it on every media platform that you possibly can. And I know that's not easy, by the way. I want to make that very clear. It's extremely difficult, actually, to have to keep reposting and on this platform and that platform. It gets tiresome, especially for me. Like, I hate having to go back and listen to myself and then cut certain parts out and then re-edit it and then put it back up. You know, the stuff's already going through my head all the time, right? So I would just say, keep it up. In person matters, right? Find those that are like-minded. Make sure they're showing up in person and confronting these people as well on their hypocrisy, their lies, how they're putting your kids' futures in real danger, humanity in real danger. And you can't just speak to the choir, right? You got to find a way to get on the human side of these people and try to break through with something. And that's the hardest thing to do. Okay? So, we got one more question or comment we're going to go over, and this one is going to be a doozy because we got a whole bunch of stuff to show on this one. But we're going to allow Simon Naylor to take it away. And remember, if you think this is a cool feature where you're sending in your own video questions and comments, well, let the Rockfin know. Twitter @TheRockfin. Add the video chat feature. You want to do this with everybody. You want to do this with Max Blumenthal, right? You want to do this with Michael Tracy. You want to do this with Steve from Slow News Day and Action for Assange, right? It's a cool feature.
One of the aspects of 9/11 that's always intrigued me most is the King Street mural van incident. It's something that often gets overlooked and not discussed much when people talk about 9/11 or when people look into 9/11 for the first time. My question, Jason, is if you or any of your viewers have ever or would be willing to request the police reports for this incident under the Freedom of Information Act. Seeing as how the responding officers chased down and arrested the occupants who fled from the vehicle, which was reported to have exploded, they then called in the ESU, the Emergency Service Unit, and they also called in the bomb squad. I have to assume that there must be reports in existence that may be accessible to the American people. So is that something that you think would be worth pursuing, something you'd be willing to do, something you see value in? And I've always wondered why this hasn't happened, or maybe it has and people got roadblocked. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, and thanks for your time. Cheers.
So let's start at the very end of that because you kind of answer your own question. Has it already happened? It has, actually. So, I mean, this is going to be a long one, everybody. So let's start with the Freedom of Information Act request. In 2000, I believe this is either in 15 or 16. Let's see. Yes, in 2015. He updated it later. This gentleman actually did put in, I believe, what was it? 7, 8 different, and they used to be able to get these because at one time I did download all of these documents, and there are certain overviews of the entire Israeli investigation that, you know, specifically go through a lot of this documentation that later put, you know, names and faces, or names to the faces of the things that would be blacked out. And what do I mean? So eventually, through another FOIA, all right, and I was actually in talks with this gentleman. These are photocopied, censored photographs of the quote-unquote dancing Israelis. And I really hate using the term dancing Israelis because celebrating Israelis, yes. I don't know about dancing. You know, from the reports, they were up on top of the van. You know, we'll play the eyewitness Maria, who is talking about how they didn't look shocked. We'll actually talk about the Gray Zone covering it this year in like a massive report where they talked to one of the Israelis, and now the Israeli story is they're not there at the first attack, okay, which contradicts a lot of the evidence that's put out before, okay, and even a lot of the suspicious material you'll find out with these separate Israelis that day, but that are also in a van, not a mural van. But again, there's so much to this. I think it's really worth talking about. Anyway, their faces were censored. The actual film supposedly was destroyed. He had asked for any video. He didn't receive any video. You know, there's been speculation that these guys actually videotaped that. What he got were basically these photographs that had been photocopied with them censored. Okay, and you even have you can see the FOI here. Now this is completely separate. I want to remind people that this is completely separate. And you notice like the backgrounds are all blotched out. You can't even see what's going on. Talk about censorship, right? And again, they're saying that these guys are taking pictures, and we can't see their faces. Why? And this guy's holding up a lighter. It's very different from the description that this one Israeli, who they don't identify in the Gray Zone report, says. He says that they woke up after the first. They went to a website, this Israeli website, that confirmed it had happened, then went down there, and we didn't do anything nefarious at all. So again, I mean, you look at this one. What does that photograph even show? I mean, give me a break. So, I can assure you that this gentleman tried to get everything he could on that, including the film, and this is what they sent him. Now, this is after all of these documents do get released. And why am I specifically going this when you talk about the van? Because he specifically, in the request, goes into the mural van. See that right there? He actually lists the items that he would like. So anybody could check this out. When he got the request back, he did get a lot of information. There was nothing on this. And so what I'm going to do is, not only am I going to play a part of Fabled Enemies that goes into a lot of this, right? Because I know that there's a quote-unquote photograph of the mural van out there that's totally photoshopped and fake. In fact, it does not go along with the description of the video, or that's given in the audio, right? And then on top of that, when you talk about that van, you have this incident on King Street where it exploded, a separate incident where you have these Israelis that have passports, multiple passports. One has $4,700 in cash, right? And again, in this interview with the Gray Zone, there's a huge contradiction where the Israeli gentleman they're interviewing acts like when he rolls up to the police officer, they're asking them for directions. And it wasn't that they were pulled over because they fit the description of this woman who had put this other person who had put the APB out on these vans. Okay? So, first thing first, I'm going to play audio. Now, a lot of this audio is muffled. Okay? And there's even more of it. You can find about 7.5 minutes of the police audio that he's discussing in this video. So, let's play some of that. In fact, I want to say 21st Century Newswire did a bang-up piece. I couldn't find it to save the life of me on these Israelis after the documents from Fernandez came out there.
Advise the message of the plane. Be advised, I'm not film Central. This is for all citywide task force units. Trinity Place and Liberty will be your mobilization point at this time. Trinity Place and Liberty. For CO Central, who is the authority of? Advise the message about the plane. Central, we need the bomb squad and ESU over King and...
Asking for the bomb squad. You heard that. Asking for the bomb squad.
Thank you. Hello, Jameson on here. 9415, you on? Anybody advise the train station's operator? Bobby. Negative. Give an update on the plane. Central, I got a message on that plane. It's a big truck with a mural painted of an airplane diving into New York City and exploding. I don't know what's in the truck. The truck is in between 6th and 7th on King Street.
So right now you're talking about, he's not talking about explosives in the truck at this point. They're talking about an exploding plane painted on the van, and it's at King Street, okay?
10-4, I'll send the issue in the bomb squad there for Westgate. no risk, message. That's fine. With a mural painted airplane diving into New York, blowing up. 2 men got out of the truck, ran away from it. We got those 2 under. That's good.
Now, look, right there you hear 2 guys got out. They ran. We got them. And then you're going to hear, if you listen hard enough, that they talk about beating the shit out of them. Okay? I'm not encouraging any of this, but I'm trying to get as much of the evidence out there as possible. And it sounds like there's a major physical altercation, and all of a sudden the van explodes.
Are you holding those 2 guys, Kay? Them under. Let's get the music going here. Listen to that. Fucking beat the shit out of them.
You hear that? He said, beat the shit out of them. And they've got him. All right? So here we go.
All right, you listen, you need any further on those 2 guys over there? You all right over there, Kay? Yeah, both suspects under, Kay. We have the suspects who drove in the van exploded. We have both of them under, Kay. Let's get some help over here. Now, I'm sending you here, shoot there. I just want to make sure you and your guys are all right over there, Kay. That's all. What's the location, right, Kay? Put them up. You know, we have both Patriotism driven that exploded. Is that correct? What location? The location, Kay.
So again, right there, they say it several times that the van has exploded, and they've got these 2 guys under. And when he put in those FOIAs, there was really no information outside of, I believe, the audio that was sent in. So I want to talk about the gray zone because we showed you that other article there, but the gray zone did it on the 20th anniversary this year, and they interview these guys. And by the way, I hate it. I hate when this happens, and they even put that in there. But the article is actually extremely fair and extensive. And they talk about how it was Ada's father denying that his son had been involved, that where we get the dancing idea. And I think that's important, you know what I mean? Because it's not just these gentlemen whose faces were boxed out and we had scans of, right? The other incident we're talking about, right, okay, is a totally different incident. And then there's the George Washington Bridge incident that I briefly go over in Fabled Enemies. So what I'm going to do, and by the way, this is, like I said, very well done. If you haven't seen it, I would say that I didn't see anything about the King Street incident in this. And it is often overlooked. And to not integrate it with the rest of the story, you know, he points out so many anomalies in these people's stories, right? And here he provides the original ABC piece right here. Okay, where
men and they
Soil.
I believe I took this part of that for the film. Okay, but it's all right here, and he even talks about, I believe, urban moving systems later on. Okay, so look, there's urban movers manager inflating prices was the Israeli system over there. All right here. So they got a lot of really good details in here. I would encourage everybody to go check that out as well. But with all that being said, let's go over to the Rockfin. I believe I had it up somewhere, didn't I? Yeah, right over here. Let's go over to the Rockfin and go to my Israeli operatives section. It was widely reported that men had been celebrating the attack after recording the first plane strike. They were not Al-Qaeda, but they were detained.
I grabbed my binoculars and I could see the towers from my window. And this is where I'm looking. And all of a sudden, down there, I see this van park. And I see 3 guys on top of the van. And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked.
There was a group of Israelis, some of whom later were revealed as Mossad assets, who were arrested after cheering and high-fiving and videotaping the crash of the airplanes into the World Trade Towers.
Several other men were detained after a van full of explosives was stopped outside of Manhattan.
Earlier, we had heard that an FBI spokesperson said that there was a report on the George Washington Bridge, which is another facility which you folks are responsible for policing, a report that there had been a van stopped there that had explosives.
Asked this week about another sprawling investigation and the detention of 60 Israelis since September 11th, the Bush administration treated the questions like hot potatoes.
I would just refer you to the Department of Justice with it. I'm not familiar with the report.
I'm aware that some Israeli citizens have been detained. With respect to why they are being detained and the other aspects of your question, whether it's because they are in intelligence services or what they were doing, I will defer to the Department of Justice and the FBI to answer that.
On March 6, 2002, a draft report from the DEA said it may well be an organized intelligence gathering activity. Despite all of this, all the Israelis were let go without any espionage charges being filed. And again, I want to reiterate, this was put on the record. You saw Colin Powell talking about it. Ari Fleischer, Ari Fleischer's like a new paid pundit over at Fox News. Again, I see him on like that Laura Ingraham program all the time. Laura, what are you doing? What are you doing? These guys have covered up crimes against humanity. They're huge parts of the problem. Carl Turd Blossom Rove is a huge part of the problem. And the fact that these people were being rounded up before in the same network, and again, it's like a 20-minute section. I don't know that we're going to play it all. We'll probably play up until the King Street explosion that we have in the movie. But I put this out in 2008. It's old news. But at the same time, in 2008, we didn't have those Xeroxes. Okay, we didn't have the documents that Fernandez gets. And there are a lot of valuable documents in there. As far as police reports, FBI reports, there was one guy within the NYPD that really went after that angle. And I would assume it's the same guy that is the source for the several days, I believe it was 4 or 5-part series regarding these Israeli operatives with Britt Hume. And I think Carl Cameron was the other person. Fox News anchors Britt Hume and Carl Cameron would do a 4-part investigation into these allegations in December of 2001 and yield stunning results.
It has been more than 16 years since a civilian working for the Navy was charged with passing secrets to Israel. Jonathan Pollard pled guilty to conspiracy to commit espionage and is serving a life sentence. At first,
he didn't serve that life sentence. One of the big failures of the Trump administration is that Trump let Pollard go in a deal with Israel. He's not in jail anymore. So that's something that's not discussed. Again, should be discussed. And think about that. That guy straight up committed espionage against the United States through the Navy. Okay, 100%, no doubt about it. And it's not like he acted alone. It's not like it stopped after that, especially when you see this report.
First, Israeli leaders claimed Pollard was part of a rogue operation, but later took responsibility for his work. Now, Fox News has learned some U.S. investigators believe that there are Israelis again very much engaged in spying in and on the U.S.
Since September 11th, more than 60 Israelis have been arrested or detained, either.
So again, that's after 9/11, another 60 people. So you again look at this. It's multiple vans. You've got one exploding. You got the incident, again, where these people are, quote-unquote, documenting the event, and everything you can do from giving the actual information of whether they were actually videotaping, even showing their faces, even showing what's going on in the background in the color photograph that obviously they had. Wow.
Under the new Patriot anti-terrorism law or for immigration violations. A handful of active Israeli military were among those detained, according to investigators, who say some of the detainees also failed polygraph questions when asked about alleged surveillance activities against and in the United States. Investigators suspect that the Israelis may have gathered intelligence about the attacks in advance and not shared it. A highly placed investigator said there are, quote, tie-ins. But when asked for details, he flatly refused to describe them, saying, quote, evidence linking these Israelis to 911 is classified. I cannot tell you about evidence that has been gathered. It's classified information.
Now, when the FBI investigated, it quickly unraveled to be the largest foreign spy ring ever uncovered inside the United States, the largest. Even the Soviet Union had not been spying on the United States as much as Israel has been doing. So the FBI started to round up these spies. They started to arrest them very quietly, and they were about halfway through this process of rounding up this spy ring when 9/11 happened.
Numerous classified documents obtained by Fox News indicate that even prior to September 11th, as many as 140 other Israelis had been detained or arrested in a secretive and sprawling investigation into suspected espionage by Israelis in the United States.
So let me just stop that. Sorry about that, guys. Because it's going to show all the agencies that were actually penetrated. Before we do that, I see a troll, a pro-Trump troll, in the non-reality section of the comments. Pollard was let go during the Trump administration. Pollard let go. I mean, what planet are you on? Okay, that's it. I mean, come on, guy. Gone. Goodbye. See you later. He cut the deal. Parole. He was supposed to be in prison for life. For life. Look at that. December 30th, 2020, brah. Come on, man. Let's stop. Let's stop. Let's stop with Imagination Land in there. Look at that. I mean, come on. Let's just stop with your nonsense, with your hero worship. Okay? Be an adult. Grow up. Like, stop with one person's going to save us all. It will be a nightmare if Trump runs in 2024. I promise you that. It is not a good thing. All right, let's get back to the Israeli section so you can see. They really did infiltrate the CIA, the FBI, the Secret Service, other secret government agencies, all that stuff.
Investigators from numerous government agencies are part of a working group that's been compiling evidence since the mid-90s. These documents detail hundreds of incidents in cities and towns across the country that investigators say, quote, may well be an organized intelligence gathering activity. The first part of the investigation focuses on Israelis who say they are art students from the University of Jerusalem and Bezalel Academy. Documents say they, quote, targeted and penetrated military bases, the DEA, FBI, and dozens of other government facilities, and even secret offices and unlisted private homes of law enforcement and intelligence personnel. The majority of those questioned, quote, stated they served in military intelligence, electronic surveillance intercept, and/or explosive ordnance units. Why would Israelis spy in and on the U.S.? A General Accounting Office investigation referred to Israel as Country A and said, quote, according to a U.S. intelligence agency, the government of Country A conducts the most aggressive espionage operation against the U.S. of any U.S. ally. The document concludes, quote, Israel possesses the resources and technical capability to achieve its collection objectives.
So what about this? There. Again, the classified stuff, we already went over the extended version of the King Street explosion that's in this. If you want to see the rest of it, it's free. It's in the highest quality free over at Rockfin, but it's also part of the playlist section over here at YouTube. Remember, that film now really holds up almost 15 years later. Almost 15. That's how long ago that is. I think it actually has its 14th anniversary coming up this on 9/11. But Joe Biden committing treason on camera in that video holds up. Okay, when we talk about this international intelligence organization, this clique that is an extension of the military-industrial complex and several different interests, but really is the predator class authoritarianism control, right? When you look at Iran-Contra, and again, how the Israelis were the ones purchasing the weapons from Czechoslovakia and Poland and sending them down to South America while working with the Americans. When you look at Epstein, right? And you see the links to Maxwell and Israeli intelligence and U.S. intelligence. It's all there. It's all there. It's the same clique. And that's why they brought in the QAnon sense and the fake saviors and the friggin' trolls. Okay? And the trolls that said, Donald Trump didn't let go of Jonathan Pollard. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And he didn't pardon Julian Assange. No, he made it easier for them to torture him in Belmarsh prison. Never forget it. Never let him off the hook for that. I'm sorry. So, guys, you want to support this broadcast, the links are down below. The GoFundMe is one great way to do it. At the very least, can I get you to get over on the Rockfin, make the free account, go over there, and then tag the Rockfin over on Twitter and say, this was awesome. We love being able to have our faces and voices on your shows, Rockfin. Make these super video chats available for everybody, and the world will smile, okay? One more time, tonight, exclusively at the Rockfin, James Corbett comes on to discuss the post-truth world. Big burp on that one, huh? Because, guys, it's not about left or right. It's always about right and wrong. I love you. Follow me on Twitter. Check out all the documentary films, Fabled Enemies, Shade the Motion Picture, Invisible Empire, A New World Order to Find, and Loose Change Final Cut for free. And I also got a getter. We'll see you on the flip.